Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Akida, for arranging this session. As you may have gathered, the reason I asked for this session is because of the chat that I noticed among you that discussing really what is this gratuity and this changes in the regulation. And I thought it would be very nice to just give you a small background. In principle, in Tanzania, there used to be several pension funds, and now there are only two. And the contribution is the same, 20%. And the fact that they said 1/3 of the future benefit is earmarked for the lump sum for the gratuity, it means 67% is earmarked for the other benefit. And this is the benefit structure of the funds in Tanzania. I would like to tell you that prior to the merger of the different public sector pension funds, PSPF, LAPF, JPF, and PPF, each one of these funds had a different accrual factor and different gratuity factor as well, and different the same rate, and as a matter of fact, a couple had different gratuity rate. So in this brief slide, you can see there are some differences, and the government wanted to really harmonize this benefit among all Social Security participants in Tanzania. And if you notice that the new formula of 1/580, it is equivalent to 2.07% accrual rate. So when you are talking about pension, or you are talking about Social Security in general, you always refer to an accrual rate. It means if somebody works for 10 years, he accrues 20% benefit. If he works for 40 years, he accrues for something like 80% benefit. So this is really the accrual rate. And it takes somebody to get 100% is to work 580 months. And we all know that usually people work for 40 years, which is 480 months. So the accrual rate will give you something around 80% replacement rate. So the subject matter here, we have to define what is really a replacement rate, expected replacement rate, and what is the cost of the accrual factor, the cost of this lump sum benefit. So when the government or the new regulations say that the 1/3 of your future benefits are in lump sum, it means in simple mathematics, 1/3 of the 20% should be financing that benefit, and 2/3 of the 20% should be financing the old age pension, they should be financing the disability and the lump sum, and so on and so forth. And this is the big question mark, whether this is adequate or not. I would like to share with you, it's not moving, sorry. Okay. This is a small comparative. If we are talking about fixing the accrual rate for the 207%, or what we call it 1/580, and then let's look at the gratuity, whether the gratuity is 50%, 40%, or 25%. And as we know that the regulation, the new regulation says the gratuity is 33%. So if you can see here that the lower the gratuity it is, the percentage for the gratuity it is, the higher replacement income in pension. So now we are talking about 33% gratuity. So the replacement income will be somewhere between 37% and 46%, something around 40% after 30 years of service. Now, many of you will say, oh, that's good. Some of you probably will say that's slow, but it's very interesting to really say, what is the trend? Usually when people go to retirement, they seek high replacement rate. By eating up some of this contribution to a gratuity, the replacement rate will become low. And if you realize that when the replacement rate, the gratuity factor was high, 50%, the replacement rate went down to 30%. So we will forget about this issue when the factor was 100/60 or 100/540. So let's concentrate on 160 and see what will happen here. I show you here a small example. Okay, here I did something very mathematical for you to look at. And I took certain assumptions. I said if somebody's salary is, let's assume dollars, $1,000 a month. So this salary is almost, people keep coming in and they are interrupting us. Okay. So that's the salary. And if the salary is grow on average 3% for 40 years, this $12,000 salary will be like $38,000 after 40 years. So we have a 20% contribution rate, we said, that is paid into the Social Security, a 20% contribution rate, but if it is 1/3 of it is earmarked for the lump sum, so we have here 6.07% earmarked for the lump sum of the contribution. And if we look at this, as if it was I'm sorry. So if we talk about contributions, and of course there are investment income on these contributions, and if we are, I'm doing very simplistic model here, showing the first 5 years and the remaining the last 5 years of the funding, you will see that this person, if he has putting this money in a bank, this amount would have accumulated at $127,000. His 1/3 contribution, 1/3 of the 20% contribution along with the investment return. His benefit, his accrual lump sum benefit gratuity will be $129,000, and it means this guy have funded most of his obligation. But what happened is here is another example. What if this person started and contributing at 3% and so on and so forth. However, this person at the end of the last 5 years of his career, his salary increased not by 3%, but by 6%. If his salary increased by 6%, you can see that the last 5 years of his career, his salary increased tremendously. And since the calculation of the benefit are based on the average of the last 3 years, this person will have a gratuity of $149,000. However, he would have contributed over $129,000. And this is a big problem that Social Security systems in the world have realized. And this is why they would say that the calculation of the benefit should not be the last year or the last 3 years. It should be at least 5 or 10 or career average. So this is the issue of funding that I wanted to talk to you about, and to talk about when we have lump sum paid like this, that will eat up from the pension. And here I would like to, let me stop this one. I want to share with you another slide, very descriptive slide of people's life financially. If we want to look at people's life financially, we will see that in the black line, if a person starts at age 25, having a salary of something around $15,000, whatever, and his salary is growing, you can see this person as we go along. And then let's say he gets married, and then his wife has a salary as well. So between his wife and himself have higher salary. And this is the salary of the two of them growing until they retire. Okay. However, we are very interested to say these salaries are supposed to pay expenses. So when he was single, they have certain expenses. And then when he is married, they have more expenses. And then we have what we call funding. They decided to buy a house. They borrowed for mortgages. And because they are smart, they said, we want to also start funding for our pension. And if they have children, they have schooling, then you have the university, graduation, and university, and so on. if you notice, the income of this household becomes at one stage, by the time they reach retirement, they reach something around $150,000. However, when they retire, they don't need anymore the money to finance the university and the mortgages, and certainly they don't need money to finance their pension. So technically speaking, they need this kind of money. This is a very interesting exercise. Looking at this income here, after we finish all the other expenses, you decide, okay, now I need a pension, and for myself and for my widow in the future, what is the cost of this pension? And we spread the cost right here, and we calculate the percentage of salaries that they can finance. So this is in its very short talk about really how we are financing Social Security. Of course, this is a single example of one person. In Social Security funding, we have a different approach. While we have people coming in, leaving early, not qualifying for pension, and the money stay in the Social Security, and so on and so forth. So I will open it now for questions that I hope I may be able to answer.
So I heard about retirement, and would like to ask what are very common methods that are used in calculating retirement benefits and so things of retiring.
As we all know, that there is no person prototype for everybody. There are people that stay single for the rest of their lives. There are people that get married young. There are people that married old. There are people that have children. People don't have children. So technically speaking, to design a Social Security fit for all, it is impossible. And unfortunately, people who are negotiating for Social Security don't really understand the proper financing of Social Security. In my humble opinion, Social Security funding should not be that high level. It should be lower, whereby it allows, this is the minimum. For example, something with a contribution rate of 8, 10%, not 20%, giving less benefit in the future. However, allowing people to think, to buy their pension as they deem appropriate to themselves. So in our advice to governments in many countries, we always push for the fact that Social Security contribution rate is too high when it exceeds the 10-12%. When you take money from somebody's earnings, it leaves them less money to live. And some people don't need that very high pension, as I showed you in the graph. To have a replacement rate more than 40-50%, it must not necessarily needed. And of course, this differs from one country to another, because some countries, they do not have healthcare costs after retirement. So people should be forced to start saving for their healthcare costs. There are countries that they do have healthcare costs after retirement. So technically speaking, they don't need these high salaries or this big pension after retirement. So it is very sensitive. In my opinion, countries should invest in educating the public to do proper financial planning. You as actuaries have a big role in really playing in the individual pension, occupation pension schemes and life insurance, and not having this, the government saying, okay, I know what's good for you, and this is it. It's not correct, in my opinion. A 20% contribution rate is too high for a mandated system. And we see it only in countries like in Africa and really not developed country financially. Donald?
Thank you very much. I would really want to ask and get to know about your comments regarding the new amendments. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Your comments about the new amendments of the formulas in members' perspective, but as well as pension fund perspective.
I mean, members, they look as many individuals, they look short term, some of them, and some of them look long term. I would have liked to see this lump sum at a 25% level, not the 33%, but at least it is not the 50%. I'm sure there were negotiations that led to this decision. But the issue that people are not talking about very much, they are only talking about the percentage of the lump sum, the gratuity, that is 1/3. What they are not talking is about the accrual, the factor, commuting factor, the 12.5. What does the 12.5 means? It means we are guaranteeing the person that he is getting upfront the salary of 12.5 years, which actually, if you take the upfront and investment return on it, you are giving him a guaranteed salary for the next 15 years or so, the present value of the annuity. So people who are ill, they don't feel well, and they think they are going to die after 2 or 3 years, they will definitely they will be very happy with the lump sum. People who are, when they are retiring, they are fit, and they think they will be living another 20 years after retirement, or 25 years between them and their widows, 12.5% is not adequate. So in many countries where there is a formula of lump sum, or what we call commuting the pension into a lump sum, usually it is not a number, but it should be a table based on the date, the age of the person acquiring that lump sum, and sometimes also based on the health of the person, and many times making the person decide on the lump sum many years before the age of retirement. So there will be no anti-selection against the fund in this situation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald. There's no questions. I'd like to tell everybody that I'm very impressed by you guys in your chat, discussing issues that are very much actuarial, and always, whenever there is issues like this, from time to time, not always, I like to contribute if needed be. So thank you again, Akida, for organizing this session. But I'd like to thank everybody and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.